Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. So today what we are going to do is I will talk about some of the traps in the Sicilian dragon. And the way you should look at the trap is not that you want to catch your opponent in this position itself. See, if it happens, then it is good. But you have to understand what are the strategic ideas in that opening. Through this traps also, I'm trying to give you some tactical ideas, some strategic ideas, like which in mathematics is called abstraction. Like we have discussed in the Joko piano e4 e5, or even in e4 e5, black generally wants to play d5 comfortably, and if he can do it, he has equalized. So like those abstractions you have to understand. Okay, so we'll go through the not only the traps, but I will give you some understanding of the Sicilian dragon opening. In Sicilian, there are about 8 to 10 systems. Today, we'll talk about two of them, not in very great detail, but in sufficient detail so that you can start playing that opening. Okay, so this one, okay, e4 is okay. You start with the king pawn opening. Okay, this we have talked about why you play e4. There are you are controlling the central squares with the pawn, and that actually helps development. And also the fight you are fighting for the central squares. This is the classical chess theory. Now black responds not with e5 but with c5. E5 and c5 are the two common responses by black. Now c5 is also stopping white from getting a big center. Okay, otherwise if you make a move like e6 or c6, white plays d4 and gets a good center. So C5 has two objectives. Both are connected. One is it prevents white from playing D4. If he plays D4, you just take it, the queen will come and your knight will come to C6, which is good for you. I mean, which is good for black because white is losing time in the opening. So anyway, this is not a good line for white. But what I'm saying is the move E5 is controlling the D4 square, and also it is preventing white from playing D4. Only in these two openings, e5 and c5, you are preventing white from playing d4. Even in knight f6, you do that, but he will kick the knight. So that is why the e5 and the c5, this e5 and c5 openings are the best, because you don't let white get a good center. Because this French and Caro-Kann, they are very difficult to play. I mean, it is not that you are mathematically lost, but it is you are walking on a very narrow path. You have to find precise moves after precise moves, especially in French, even in Caro-Kann. Okay, so e4, black plays c5, not letting white get the central thing immediately, central push d4 immediately. White develops the knight. Now, knight f3. Don't get the impression that this is the only move. D4 is again walking into the Mora gambit. I mean, then you take it, he can play c3. And white has two natural moves, knight c3, knight f3. These two are the two responses, but I just want to confine to knight f3 itself because the main two options at this moment is one knight c3. This is called a closed Sicilian. I will tell you why it is called a closed Sicilian. The second is knight f3. Knight f3 is the most common, and because you want to develop your pieces, the opening principles remain the same. Whether you play any opening, you have to develop your pieces rapidly. You have to fight for the center, move the king to safety. So knight f3, knight c3, d4. D4 is the Mora gambit. These are the three main responses from white. Right now, we are confining ourselves to knight f3. Okay, later on, we can look at other systems, knight c3 and d4 and stuff like that. So knight f3 is it is more classical. I mean, it is more common. Why? Because you want to develop your king side pieces, and generally you are castling king side. But in Sicilian, you'll see a lot of times you castle queen side. Okay, so you play knight f3. Now here there are several systems from black. There are several good responses. One is d6, one is e6, one is knight c6. These three are the main responses. G6 is also playable. Knight f6 is also played, but that is a slightly offbeat opening, and white pushes e5 and the knight jumps to d5. Okay, so right now we are confining ourselves to one system because in Sicilian it's a lot of theory, just like e4, e5. E4, C5 also has a lot of theory. There are about 8 to 10 systems. Now, it's not that to play Sicilian, you need to know all these 10 systems. Slowly you will learn. But the idea is to take one system and play several games in that so you get a feel of the system. So D6 has an idea here. The idea of D6 is you are controlling the E5 square. Otherwise, what happens if you develop this knight immediately? This is another opening which is not which is considered slightly offbeat and not perhaps the best, then white will kick this knight. So what you are doing by playing d6, you're preventing the pawn push. I mean, okay, he will take it, you will take it, then you can still play. So you are preparing for knight f6 by playing d6. Since you are anticipating that if I develop the knight on the second move, he will kick this knight. That is why you play d6. And the next move, you will play knight f6. Okay, so now coming to the third move of white. White plays d4. I'm just telling a little bit of starting 5 moves and the idea because that will help you in general to understand this. So d4 is basically you want to resolve some tension in the center. You want to open the bishop diagonals, right? So this is called the open Sicilian. Okay, when white plays a d4, this is called open Sicilian because the center also gets little bit open there. I mean, the d pawn doesn't exist, and that is why I mean, there will be exchange of the C and D pawn. The center becomes a little bit open. So the piece activity becomes more important. I mean, you have to develop very quickly when the center is liquidated. So black definitely takes this because he is capturing one of the central pawns of white. Okay, so he is exchanging his C pawn for white's D pawn. So that is why this is a good move. Uh, and one more thing, this is not the only way for white to play. Okay, if he wants to play a closed Sicilian, then he should have played knight c3 and all. Right now, when you play knight f3, then it is generally a good idea to play this because it opens both your bishops and you will see the development is good for white. Now, black takes this and white takes this. Now, uh, black develops the knight and attacks this central pawn e4. Now, developing with the bishop is a little bit awkward, and generally you want to develop your knight before the bishop unless you have some specific reason. So the natural move is knight c3. Now this is move number 5, and here you have different options for black. A6 is called the Sicilian Najdorf. If you play A6, this is the Sicilian Najdorf. Okay, this has huge theory. This is debated at the top level also. And it's a very interesting and fighting opening, but still difficult opening to play for amateurs because what is happening is even the Sicilian is slightly difficult because uh, black is behind in development a little bit and white gets the initiative. So black has to play precisely. Okay, A6 is one move. Knight c6 is called the classical Sicilian. This looks more natural. You are developing both the knights. This is also played at the grandmaster level. Then you have g6, which is the dragon. And apart from g6, you have e6. E6 is called the Scheveningen Sicilian. This is also played. And all these moves are natural. Okay, you can see that a6, e6, g6 might look to you slightly unnatural, but that is basically you want to develop the bishop on the long diagonal and castle king side. So a6, e6, g6, and knight c6. These are the 4 possible responses from black. Okay, so right now we are confining to only one system, and this is what I would say, because if you are black here, you have a choice to take one path. And it is not necessary initially when you are an amateur or when you haven't played this opening much that you know everything. Because if you try to know all the systems, you'll get confused. Understand one system and play several games in that. Okay. So now black, right now we are confining to this G6. Now this, the name is very fancy. Okay. The Sicilian dragon. Now, the actual why it's called a dragon is there is a constellation of stars called the Draco. So this pawn structure, D6, E7, f7, g6, and h7. Some astronaut or astronomer he found, and he was also a chess player. He said that okay, this looks like a constellation of stars, and he named it after this constellation called Draco, Draco, and that is why it's called a dragon. Okay, Draco, I think is not an English word. It might be. I'm not sure what it's a. Is it a Russian word, German word, or whatever? So basically, this is not the dragon which we imagine. I mean, we don't think about a dragon and all which you have seen in movies like Jurassic Park, but it is actually a constellation of stars. Anyway, that is the history why it's called a dragon. So fifth move g6 is the Sicilian dragon. Okay, so now this is the beginning of Sicilian dragon. Now there are several ways of playing for white. In opening, it's not like a puzzle that there is only one solution. There's only one unique move, and that will take home the bacon. No. In opening, there are different systems. What do I mean by systems? The set of moves. You will arrive at different position by if you play something. Bishop e2 is one system. If you play bishop e2, you want a castle king side. This is one system. Bishop e3 is another system. So there are several systems which can be played against the dragon. Now, the most challenging system against the dragon is the Sicilian Yugoslav. It is called the Yugoslav attack. Now, why it's called the Yugoslav attack? I believe, or as far as I remember, there were a lot of Yugoslavian players who were playing this. That's why it was called the Yugoslav attack. And the idea is very simple. You play bishop e3. First, let's try to understand the idea. You will play bishop e3. You probably have to play f3 because the knight will jump on g4 at some point of time, or he will threaten there. And you'll play queen d2 and you'll castle on the queen side. And then you want to launch an attack on the black king. Now here is the first trap, which we have already discussed. Now in Sicilian dragon, black would lovingly, or black desires to exchange this knight on f6 for the dark squared bishop on e3. Because this bishop, see, black's bishop is very powerful. It is a fantastic defender on g7. When you will fianchetto the bishop on g7 and castle, that's an excellent defender. So black desires to exchange this knight on f6 for this bishop on e3, because then this bishop on g7, which will be developed later on, I mean from f8, it will be developed to g7, that will be unopposed. What do I mean by unopposed? There's no bishop counter, though no counterpart in white which can challenge him, right? So, but one important thing in chess is the tactical considerations. They always supersede positional considerations. Like you understand that this knight has to be exchanged for the bishop, but you always have to calculate mathematically and see whether it is possible to do that at this moment or not. And we have discussed that knight g4 is a mistake, right? Nikhil, you know why it's a mistake? Why knight g4 is a mistake, you remember? Okay, leave it. So knight g4 is a mistake, even though this move would have been great due to positional considerations, but here it is not working. We have talked about it, but I just thought I'll show this. Bishop b5 check. Before making the move, understand this. The knight is attacked once and protected once. So this type of thing, when a piece is attacked once and defended once, or the piece is attacked twice and defended twice, then there can be a move which can change the equilibrium. I can make a move which would lead to you attending something more urgently, and you will not, the piece will no more be defended. Okay. So that is called a semi-protected piece. The piece is attacked once and defended once. So right now it's fine, but immediately white capitalizes on it. He plays bishop b5. Now, if you play knight d7, then I'll take the, just a minute. So obviously you can't play bishop d7. That is the point, that the bishop is pinned along the a4 e8 diagonal. I will take this knight with the queen. So even though it appears to an untrained eye that the knight is protected by the bishop, but it is not, because there's a pin along the a4 e8 diagonal, and white can capitalize this and pick the knight. Okay, so the knight will be lost. If you make a move like knight d7, then anyway, you are interfering with the bishop's duty of protecting the knight. I can pick that. Okay. And also, if you play knight c6, then I'll exchange the knights on c6 and play bishop c6 and win in exchange. Knight c6, bc6, bishop c6, bishop d7, and I'll take this. Queen captures. Okay, so here white is an exchange up, knight for a rook, and a pawn, even an extra pawn. Okay, so white is winning. That is why the theory here is you should not play knight g4 on the sixth move after white has played bishop e3. Even though it might look to you that I can jump with the knight, but this is a mistake. So this is the first trap. This is very simple. Anyone who plays the dragon, he should be aware of this, that knight g4 is not possible. Otherwise, you have to play an exchange down position. Okay. This is another important point. Even though by positional consideration, you want to exchange the knight for a bishop, but not right now. Mathematically, it's not working right now. Tactical considerations are, they supersede positional considerations. Okay. Now, black understands that he cannot go for the bishop, and he makes the move bishop g7. Okay. Now, black can think of jumping with the knight. Okay. Because when you give a check, he can move the king also to f8 if required. So that is why white plays f3, controlling the g4 square. Right. So what it does is that now the knight cannot jump on g4. You are in a way preparing for queen d2 and castles. That is why you played bishop e3 and then f3. Now understand one more thing. Someone can play f3 first and then bishop e3. It doesn't make a difference. But if you play bishop e3, you are leaving a possibility that your opponent can go wrong. That is why they want to play bishop e3 first, and then they want to play f3. Okay, so bishop e3 and bishop e3 followed by f3, or f3 followed by bishop e3. It is the same thing. So okay, he plays f3 now. And now again, black has two possibilities. He can play knight c6 or he can castle. Both are the same by transposition. Okay, I mean, there is no fundamental difference. So you can play this knight c6, and here white will play queen d2. See, in this Yugoslav setup, which we are looking at, the plan for white is very simple. He wants to play bishop e3, f3, queen d2, and maybe I'll tell you, 9th move he can castle, or the 10th move he'll castle, depending on what is the line he's choosing. Now black castles. Now this is, we have completed 8 moves from both sides. Now this is a crossroad. There are two branches which are played at the grandmaster level, even at the elite grandmaster level. There are two possible moves. One is bishop c4 and the other is castle. Bishop c4 is a more aggressive option, and castle is a slightly more positional option. Okay, so right now we'll explore bishop c4. Okay, bishop c4 is with the idea to prevent d5. I told you, even in Sicilian, this is again an abstraction and a strategic idea. In most of the Sicilian, if black is able to play d5 comfortably without any loss, or without any positional loss or any material loss, then he has equalized. Now, don't think that you can play d5 here right away. Okay, you lose a pawn. Not like that. But if you can play d5 comfortably without losing any material, without any tactical, without any tactical concession, then you have equalized. Here, the idea of move bishop c4 is to prevent d5. And this is another important idea in openings. When you want to learn in chess, not only in opening, even in middle game and end game, it happens, you're always thinking about the opponent's plan. And if his plan is good, then you should always stop it. You should prevent that plan from being executed. That is called prophylaxis. This is a technical word, but black wants to play d5. And as white, this move is preventing that idea of playing d5. That is how you should think. Otherwise, what will happen is you cannot understand the chess theory, you cannot understand the middle games, And you will not be able to find good moves in the middle game also. Middle game and even in end game. Prophylaxis is a very important thing. Whatever is my opponent under, that is why in chess, at the grandmaster level or even slightly lower than that, it is even more, the opponent's plan, to understand opponent's plan is even more important than your own plan. Okay, it's not that you should not have a plan. But what I'm saying is, okay, you have a plan of your own, but you always have to understand the opponent's plan. And that is, understanding opponent's plan is actually more important than your own plan. If you are not understanding what the opponent is doing, then you might be caught napping, and you might there might be a catastrophe which can happen. Okay, so that is why you are always looking for opponent's plan at every stage of the game. That is why bishop c4 is a good move. Okay, castles is also played. Okay, this is another branch where you play castle. Let me give a minute to this because I'm telling about some opening theory also, not only on the trap. So once you play castle, black immediately plays d5. Immediately. Okay, this is the thing. He wants to play d5. If you don't play d5 here, you will not equalize. And then the game proceeds. It's not that the game is drawn here, but black liberates himself. See, black is slightly behind in space. So when you're behind in space, there are two ways you get out of it. One is you exchange some pieces, and the second is you have to do some pawn breaks. And this pawn break is important. Okay, then there is the game proceeds. I mean, there are several lines. 10th move, queen e1 is also there. If you take the pawn, I take this, and there's a pin on the pin along this d file. So stuff like that. But right now, let's confine ourselves to bishop c4. Okay. So after bishop c4, black can play knight e5 immediately. Your bishop can go back to b3. That is also possible. Again, there will be transpositions which will happen. Black plays bishop d7, and here white castles. Now, this is another strategic point. In a lot of openings in Sicilian, you have this setup of bishop e3, f3, queen d2, and castle, queen side. Now, this is another important thing. When the two kings have castled on opposite side, then it is your duty. It is your duty to attack the opponent's king. Okay, and you have to calculate. It is basically a bloody war. Then it is not a slow war. It is a direct confrontation, because both the guys have telegraphed their address that I'm here and you are telling me here, that they are on opposite ends. Now, the idea is you want to push the pawns as quickly as possible. And this is called in chess terminology pawn storm. You start marching your pawn forward, and black also will start marching his pawn forward, or he will use some pieces also. You have to use the combination of pawns and the heavy pieces to open the files. If the files get opened, suppose if this h pawn is not there, then black will be lost here. If suppose h and g pawn both are not there, then it's like very, very difficult to hold for black. In fact, I don't think it is possible to hold it. Even if you remove the h pawn right away from this board, at this moment, black will be lost. Okay, so that is why you want to open, because the rooks are ineffective unless the file is open. The rooks cannot do anything unless the file is open or semi-open. If it is closed, the rooks are totally ineffective. Bishops and all, because they are moving in a diagonal, they still can find a diagonal on the board where they can operate. But for rooks, they need open files. Otherwise, they cannot do anything. Okay, rank, they can't come to the rank right now, to any rank, 7th rank and all. That will only happen in the middle game or the late middle game. So that is the idea. Now, this is not only in Dragon. This is in any opening when you're playing and you have castled opposite sides. Try to launch an attack as quickly as possible. Don't delay it. Every move counts. But you have to be cautious. Sometimes it is that your attack is slow. Then you have to defend in that case. Suppose your attack is slower than your opponent. Then it's not that I'll only attack, because I will see that I'll get mated. So you have to then, that's why there is more calculation needed when you have castled on the opposite side. Okay, so black plays rook c8. Now, this is a standard tabia. Tabia is an Arabic word which means a position in the Sicilian dragon. After this 10th move, rook c8, right? So I told you, important point is that tactical considerations, they supersede positional consideration. White wants to play h4, h5. This is what Bobby Fischer had said, that in the Sicilian dragon, the idea is very simple. The idea is at h4, h5, open the h file, sack, sack, mate. This is what he said, and that is correct. That is the general idea. You want to play h4, h5, somehow open the file, sacrifice the rook also. If the knight is blocking on h5, sack that rook, okay? Rook h5, and then use the other rook, queen, and then checkmate the opponent. Now, this idea which Bobby Fischer has said is a very, very important idea, and you should have this abstraction. That is the idea which I'm going for. h4, h5, and then open the h file, and then I will be delivering the mate. That is how you play. Now, this is what you should be doing. You should, when you're playing Sicilian against Sicilian dragon, this is the setup you should try to get in your games, and then play several games. Then you'll understand that. Okay, so this point, as I said, always calculate tactical considerations. They supersede general consideration. White wants to play h4, but here he's not prepared for it. This trap, Vihan, you remember, we have seen this. What is the idea, you remember? After h4, what will black play?
Yes, 1 minute. I have seen this.
Yeah.
So g4.
Knight d4, yeah. He has to take with the queen, because with the bishop, then the c4 bishop falls. Knight d4, queen d4.
Yes, 1 minute. I'm calculating knight. No, sir, I'm telling knight g4.
Knight g4 first move is knight g4 first move. No, knight g4 first move doesn't work, because I will capture your knight on c6 and attack your queen. No. Okay, knight g4 first move. 1 minute. Knight g4 first move. If you play, I'm thinking knight g4 first move is no, that is not great. Okay, I can even play knight c6. Then you will take it with the rook, and I take your knight, and you will take my bishop, and I will save myself. It's not that great. Knight g4 immediately is not good. See, I exchange this, right? And then you take it with the rook, because I'm attacking your queen. You have to take it.
Fork, right? It's a fork. You can do knight e4, then he plays knight e4, and then you play d4 or d5.
No. You first played knight g4, right? I exchanged the knight. Now you will play rook c6, right? Only move.
Yes.
Only logical move. Then you are not better, because what I will do is I can even play bishop f7. You'll take this, and then I'll take this knight.
Oh, okay.
It's equal material. This is playable, but not best. Okay, I'll tell you. This we had discussed.
Yeah, so now I realized what to do.
Yeah.
Knight cross d4.
Yeah, knight d4 and
now it's
d4.
queen d4.
Yeah.
And when you play queen d4, I'll play knight g4 then.
Yeah, correct. So again, this is another important point. If some idea is not working, then what you do, you shuffle the move order. Like if you play knight g4 first, it doesn't work, because I exchange my knight on d4 with this knight on c6 and attack your queen. I'm gaining a tempo here. And then I will capture this knight, or I'll play bishop f7. I'll insert that move because I'm losing the bishop. So at least let me expose the king. So what you do, you exchange this knight for this knight. The queen comes on the same diagonal as the bishop. So it's like they are facing each other on this diagonal. And that is generally bad news for the queen, because there will be a discovered attack. And that is the idea. Knight g4 now, he has to step back. No other move. And now the queen is overloaded. Yeah, now the queen is overloaded. You cannot protect both the knight e3, right?
Yeah, knight e3.
You will play knight e3 because I'm forced to. Yeah, I can insert a move bishop f7. Okay, if, against a strong player, he will understand that he's going to lose the bishop. So he will play bishop f7. You will take it with this, and then you will win this knight. Okay. So this is the point which let me make that move. Bishop f7. And this is what you should be doing. Okay, if you're seeing that you're going to lose the piece, if possible, capture a piece with a check. Okay, not just play that way. So here, this thing h4, h5 is not working immediately. It doesn't mean that h4 is a bad idea altogether. It means at this moment it cannot be played. So what the grandmasters do, they play bishop b3. Because the rook was staring at the bishop and there was a discovery there, you tuck in the bishop. Okay, and then I'm just telling you a little bit more of theory. White jumps with the knight to e5. And now white plays h4. This is called the Saltis variation, which Kasparov also played. Kasparov was black against Anand. And one of the ways of playing this is to play h5, not letting white play g4. This is a respectable way of playing, and even contested in the World Chess Championship in 1995. Okay, so this is, I'll stop here, and then white plays king b1. So this is how the opening theory evolves. So what you want to take away from this is not just the trap. What you should learn, suppose you are playing white here, then you will say that, okay, I will play bishop b3. My idea of h4 is good. I have to delay it by one move because the bishop is unguarded. Again, tactics will work only in two conditions. I mean, there are 3-4 conditions, but two conditions are if the piece is hanging or if the piece is semi-protected. You are attacking, it is attacked once and defended once, like the knight on g4, which we looked at, that was attacked once and defended once. So then definitely I can make a move which can change the equilibrium. Here it was unguarded. That is why the tactics was working. That is why you understand the opponent's idea, what he wants to do.
Queen e2 instead of bishop b3.
Queen e2. See, anyway, you don't want to relegate the queen e2 is playable, but not the best. You want to relegate the queen for more important task, and if the bishop is guarded there, then the queen can attend other things. You want to play h4, h5, and go to the kingside attack. You don't want to relegate yourself to just guarding the bishop, right? That will be a very menial task for such a powerful piece like queen.
Yes, right? And so here, like when isn't bishop h6 a good idea?
You can, but first you tuck in late.
Yeah, and, first tuck in. But then next move, when he plays knight e5, yeah, then you can play bishop h6, right?
Bishop h6 is another way of playing. A system, you can play bishop h6, but h4 is more played at the grandmaster level because somehow the idea is to open the h file as quickly as possible, double the rooks on the h file, and then use the queen bishop to attack. Okay, that's why h4 is more often played, and that is what Gary in the World Championship against Anand. Okay, he played h5, and h5 is a very respectable system called the Saltis variation of this Sicilian dragon, and white played king b1. So h4,
yes, like this, then there's a huge attack coming, right?
Yeah, there is. See, in Sicilian dragon, black's score is not great at the elite grandmaster level. It's not great. Okay, but Kasparov was able to hold because h5 is very precise, and he was able to exchange the queens later on and get into an endgame where he was able to actually defeat Anand in one of the games. Anand made a mistake and he lost.
Sure, I will play simply g4.
Yeah, g4 is now you are preventing g4. I mean, in a way, you are preventing g4 in
the sense. Not quite preventing it, but like g4, if you capture, then I'll play bishop h6.
Yeah, g4. I will jump with the knight to c4 and attack. I mean, there is like the theory goes. You can play some games. We can look at that in detail. But that is the point that I'm saying that after this, the game starts. We can look at the Kasparov game once. Anand versus Kasparov, and see how the game evolved here. And the main line is king b1. But the key takeaway is that not only this trap, now you should also get an understanding that how you will play against this dragon setup. And even if you are black, how do you play this? You have to play from both colors so as to get an idea of the whole. Okay, so Vihan will definitely look at that game in some class.
So why did you play f3 as such?
F3 was to basically prevent knight g4. That was the thing. Okay, so now let's end this session and we'll talk about some more traps in the next part. See you on the other side.